All right, so I'm going to start this strategy call. Thank you for those of you that's joined on. I'm going to start by let's start from the end, from the beginning, right? Um, the goal here is for us to begin to put together a clear strategy for you to get into the law school of your choice. Now, let me tell you what I'm going to share with you. I know one of you on the call is applying for business school. This is beyond just law school. You can use this for any school of education, graduate school, higher education. But we're going to focus on law school because most of you on the call are on going to law school. And then we'll do individual sessions where we'll talk specifically to your target base. Some things I want you to get down from the very beginning. Thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are applying to schools, law schools, and graduate schools every single year. Your job and what my job is with you to coach you and quarterback you through, how do you stand out from all the other people that's going to have a similar range of testing scores? They have a similar range of GPA. They have a similar range of, they all did the same things in extracurriculars in college. They all are saying, I'm dedicated and I'm going to do well in your law school. How do we help you to stand out? I specialize in this. I've helped many people get into the law schools and graduate schools of their choice, from top tier to Ivy League, to specialty graduate schools. This is what I do. And what I'm going to help you through this process over the next several months is coach you through, one, helping you to understand yourself better. What did Shakespeare say? To your own self be true. Your application is going to look completely different from everybody else that's there. Now, you're going to have the same components, but it's going to look different. Your personal statement should feel different. I shouldn't be able to just plop somebody else's name in. Your resume and the diversity pieces that we're going to send out, the things, when I say diversity, we'll get into this later, that goes beyond race. Everybody has something that they should be able to write to about diversity, whether it's another language they speak, whether it's their gender, whether it's their background in the sense that maybe they have one parent as opposed to two. In certain communities, two parents as opposed to one. The fact that you live in a certain part of the country. I had a white guy I was working with, and I told him we're going to put together a diversity piece. He started laughing. He said, well, I'm applying to law school and I'm blonde hair, blue eyes. What do you mean? I said, hey, you live in middle America. That's something we need to speak to. I want to speak to how that's going to inform, and you're applying to a school in New England. You're applying to an Ivy League school in New England. I want you to be able to speak to how you're going to bring you certainly bring a different accent, but you're going to bring an entirely different perspective. Remember, graduate schools, law schools, higher institutions of education, higher education, they are looking for people that's going to enhance their brand. I need you to write that down, please. They're looking to help them before they're looking to help you. If you can make an application, and I'm going to help you with this process, that helps them to see the value in you, you get admission. Very clear. Very clear. It's not about rewarding you for past performance. There's been a lot of arguments about, people get turned down and have these top scores and they accept someone else and they have lower scores. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because they're looking at an assessment of a number of different things. They understand certain people do better in testing scores, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do well in life. All the testing scores matter is about helping them to see a sense of how you're going to be in life. They're looking at the past to make a prediction about the future. All of them want to pick. Remember, all of these schools are known. You know Yale, you know Harvard, you know these Ivy League schools, you know schools that are top tier like Georgetown and Stanford and even like Duke. You know them because phenomenal people have gone there and graduated from there. I knew Morehouse because Dr. King and, all of these great alumni who went on to shape the world graduated from there. Every school I want you to understand this. Every school is looking for people that's going to enhance their brand. My goal is to help you find what makes you unique, find what makes you stand out, find what makes you different, find what gives you value so we can articulate that to an admissions committee. And so that way they see by accepting you, it's boosting them. That's the goal. I don't want to get isolated and I'm here to help you with your testing scores, and I'm here to help you write a good essay, and I'm here to, help you put together, a good resume that shows your extracurriculars. No, let's look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is to use every single piece of the puzzle, of the pie, if you will, in order to articulate and enunciate to an admissions committee that I'm the guy that you want. You want to put your bets on me. Also, I will tell you this. I'm going to help you with crafting letters that can explain things that could potentially be a pitfall. I don't believe in leaving it up for chance and letting the elephant in the room just fester. Speak to it. If you know you have a phenomenal application, I had one client, perfect application. I mean, GPA was killing it, was president of his school, had done some stuff in sports. She had graduated 2 years before, so he was killing it in his personal career. He worked for, I think, like Coca-Cola, one of those places. Everything about him was great. What was the problem? His test score was just not good. I mean, it was average, but it wasn't where it needed to be for the Ivy League. He took it twice. And so I told him, this is what we're going to do. I need you to take it twice. I need you to go harder the second time. Second time he took it, still didn't do as well. I said, that's fine. Now this is what we're going to do. We put together a real small letter, two to three paragraphs, and we basically just said in a nutshell. These testing scores are not indicative of who he is. In fact, and that's why I wanted him to take it twice. In fact, I took it twice. I'm using his voice now. I took the test twice to show you that I have perseverance. Please know that at your law school, I will work as hard as I have in every facet of my career, in my life, which is why in my career, because he was in sales, I've done so well in sales because I haven't been the quickest guy to get it on the first try, but I always can outwork other people. And that's what we talked about. And that's, it wasn't in a personal statement, but it was in what I call a small letter to address an elephant in the room. We talked about the fact that, if admitted to the law school, that I will work as hard and harder than anybody else there because I know that I don't pick things up as quickly, but I always get there because I work harder. You see what I mean? And that fits with this overall theme, in his case, of persistence. It fits with this theme of stick-to-itness. It sticks to this theme of I can do it. And guess what? He was accepted into his number one school, which was an Ivy League school all of them in New England, but an Ivy League school. And I believe that part of what helped was that instead of just kind of feeling like, dag, I can't do it because of test scores, we put together an application process that overall spoke to his overall character, and we spoke directly to what we thought would be a potential issue. All right. That's what my job is to help you do throughout this process. Let's get straight into the call. Okay, so I want to thank, first of all, those of you who have joined the call. What we're doing today is sort of an initial strategy session. I want to give some thoughts and feedback on some of the materials that you sent me, so that way when we get into our individual coaching, we have a better sense, one, of where you're going specifically, but also what your plan is. One of the goals of this call also is that I want to get feedback at the end of this, so that way each of you who are on this call, I think it's about 4 of you that are here, and I wanted it to be small for that reason, because once I finish sharing some things, I want you in this initial session to talk with each other, because I think that's going to give you ideas as to how you can move forward and kind of see what other folks are doing. So let's do it like this. What I want to kind of start with is I want to give a very quick overview of the mandatory components of the application process, the law school application process. And then I want to get into some of the specific things or the more tailored things that we can tweak, that's going to help you stand out. Now, you should know, I know at least one of you who are on this call is applying for business school, not law school, and that's fine, because what I'm telling you here is going to translate into other graduate school admissions, but I'm focusing the conversation right now sort of around the law school process, because more of you who are joined this call are going in that route. But what I'm sharing is something that is definitely translatable and transferable. So let's get straight to it. 5 components I want you to write down. Now, you've already read the manual that I sent over to you, the manual that we created that kind of walks you step by step through the process. But I want to go back over this verbally now, so that way you have some context as to how you want to move forward. So 5 things that every law school application is going to have, and it's going to be assessed on as to whether or not you're going to be able to gain admission. GPA, testing scores, recommendations, extracurricular activities, and some level of personal statement. So I want to go back over those. GPA, that GPA is, of course, the GPA that you had in your collegiate institution. It's going to be less important, naturally, the longer you are out. Now, most of you that are on this call have been out of law school between 2 to 4 years. So the GPA is going to be moderately important, certainly not as important as someone who's coming straight through. I know one of you is coming straight through, but definitely it is going to be something that is going to be looked at. The GPA gives the admissions committee a sense of your work ethic over a period of time. That's very important. And we'll throughout the strategy calls that we have individually, we'll talk more about things that you can do even to address, as it were, some sort of issue that you feel like maybe needs to be addressed, whether your GPA isn't where you want it to be. But so you've got that GPA, grade point average. Then it's the testing scores. In this case, you can either take the LSAT, which is what I took when I went to law school, or the GRE, which is what many schools are opening up to. I advise that you take the test at least a year and a half before you're applying for admission. What do I mean? So let's start the end from the beginning. If you are applying in for this spring, because we're at the top of 2020, if you are applying this fall, you are applying this fall for admission for 2021. All right. The application season is already open for the fall 2020 schedule, but we're at the tail end of it. So most of you that are on this call, you're joining because you're at the last bits of preparing your application and you are looking to apply in fall of this year to be admitted and enrolled for fall of 2021. So that's why you really have to backtrack this. You got to quarterback this, and you want to take the test at least a year and a half before, because you want to give yourself time to, if you get a score that you don't like, to be able to take it again and not feel rushed. That's what I did. I took the LSAT twice. First time I took it, I got an okay score, but my mentor, who had graduated from Harvard Law School about 3 years before, sat me down and said, look, it's a good score. And I think you'll get into a lot of law schools. But if you want to go to Harvard, then you're going to have to change, and you're going to have to put in a lot more work. And you're going to have to raise that score. So when you have time on your side, you have the ability to do that. I started studying for the LSAT when I was a freshman in college. People laughed at me. Some folks said, well, you just got to college. How do you... Why don't you tackle college before you think about law school? But I understood something. I think it was Stephen Covey who said in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, start with the end in mind. I knew I wanted to go to law school. I knew I would graduate from college and go to law school. I knew I wanted to go directly after senior year in college. That meant I had to be applying at the beginning of my senior year. That meant that if I started the end of freshman year, which is what I did, studying for the LSAT, that gave me a window of about 2 years, sophomore and junior year, in order to get it right. And it took me about as long. Third component, recommendations. This is highly important. Recommendations give the the admissions committee a sense of who you are outside of what you say about yourself. Of course, you're going to say nice things. Of course, you're going to say wonderful, great, amazing, spectacular things about yourself. And we would assume a recommender would as well, because you're asking them, you're choosing them. It's not like these are blind folks who are being picked out of a lot to talk about you, but it says something about you when you have people who can speak highly of you. They can speak of your work ethic. They can speak of your studies in school. They can speak of, for those of you that are working, they can speak of your professional career. They can speak of some sort of other aspect of you that gives the admissions committee a full orb sense of who you are. I want you to write this down. Part of your job in doing the application and my job in helping quarterback you through this process is that you give the applications committee a full orb sense of the multifaceted nature of who you are. This is not just presenting yourself as, oh, I'm a bookworm or I'm somebody who, um, can read a lot and study a lot and regurgitate a lot of information. Those are helpful skills. We love folks that have high GPAs. We love folks that have high LSATs. But I want you to know this. At the top schools, I'm talking about the top echelon of schools, each year they turn down at least one person who has a 180 in the LSAT, which is the highest score you can get in the LSAT, and a 4.0 in GPA. I mean, can you imagine that, having the number one grades in your school and the top LSAT score, and you still get rejected from the top echelon of schools? Why is that? Because they're looking for people who have more than just that. Those skills are highly important, and that's an important piece of the process, which is why I started with GPA, LSAT. But now we're getting into more of the soft skills. They want folks, at the end of the day, this is what I want you to remember. Admission to a college, law school, or higher education institution is not about rewarding you for past performance. Past performance is only an indicator of where you're going in the future. They want folks that are charismatic and that are going to move the world, that are going to take their brand of their college, their institution, their graduate school, their law school to the next level. The reason why you know Yale, the reason why you know Harvard, the reason why you know Columbia is because of, and Georgetown and these other schools, Stanford, is because these phenomenal groups of folks have graduated from there, and as their personal brand grew, so did the school. That's what the school is looking for. They're looking for people that's going to take their brand to the next level. Your job, and maybe I should have started with this, your job in the application process is to convince them, to show them, to help them to understand that you have something different, special, unique, and powerful about you. That's what I'm going to help you do through this process. I probably should have started there. That's what I'm going to help you do in this process. All right. What the recommendations do is they begin to carve out that piece. Begin to help you to help the applications committee to see there's something different about this person, because sponsorship is highly important, and that's what recommendations do. It gives them a sense of who you are from others. Now, let me say this again, on the strategy calls individually, we'll get a lot more specific. Biggest mistake people make with recommendations. They try to get high level folks, people who have these great titles, lofty positions, to write recommendations. The problem with that is, all things equal, you want folks that can speak to depth and not just superficially. So if you can get the mayor of your city to talk about how you interned for him or her and how you did something at that city that changed the lives of folks, that's wonderful. But if all you can get the mayor of the city to say is they're a resident and I ran into them once or twice and they're a good student, I presume, then that's not good. Always go with folks that you know can speak in depth about your character, can speak in depth about your work ethic, can speak in depth about the special uniqueness that you bring to the world, that can speak in depth to your professional career, to your personal empowerment. That's highly important. I picked folks who not only were teachers, professors who could speak to, academia, but they could speak to the fact that I was a leader in school, that I was class president, that I wrote a book at 18. I had someone who was in the mayor's office who was there when I implemented the one of the manuals for the high schools that ended up getting turned into a curriculum for the mayor's youth commission in my city, in Newport News. I had her speak to that. That's important. Have people that can speak to depth. All right, next thing. Where are we at? Number 4, extracurriculars, extracurricular activities. Extracurriculars are highly important. They paint you as someone who is doing something outside of just being a bookworm. Now, for those of you that have been out of school for a while, again, extracurriculars in school may not have mattered as much, but I'm using that word extracurriculars to just talk about, speak to who you are outside of the classroom. Remember, 70% of what you learn in any institution of higher education is going to be outside the classroom. All right. So it is very important. It is highly, highly, highly important that you show these things that you've done. What type of charitable work have you done? What type of leadership positions have you held? Uh, you know, I didn't. You may not have written a book, but maybe you've done a series of webinars. I worked with one of our clients, and he was a star football athlete. He was the captain of his football team. I said, look, we need to talk about that. It shows leadership. It shows initiative. It goes beyond football. Nobody was expecting you to go to the NFL, but what it shows is that you know how to work in teams. You know how to mold teams. You know how to push past adversity. You know how to motivate people. And that was an angle that we picked, which leads me directly to my fifth facet of every law school application and any graduate school application, which is going to be the personal statement. This is this is where we really have fun. I'm going to help you, and we're going to spend a significant amount of time throughout this process crafting something that's personal, that speaks only to you. The biggest mistake people make with personal statements, they say a bunch of nonsense that anybody can throw in. I'm highly dedicated. I work hard. I want to go to your school. No. Scrap that. We want to write something that's powerful, profound, that's personal. It's a story. I'm not going to get on to that now. Your best personal statements are stories. Jesus spoke in parables. He was the greatest speaker that have ever lived. Some of the best storytellers, they tell stories, and those are the ones that do well in politics. I mean, they do well on stage. They do well in song because they're telling stories. So that's what we're going to do with your personal statement. We're going to reduce the sense of who you are to a story that weaves together this thread that has threaded your entire life. We're going to get a theme. We have one of the folks that I work with, we started with, I only ate snake once. That was his opening line. First sentence, powerful. Where were we going? He was a guy who has traveled the world. He was young and he was an up-and-comer, and he had eaten snake in a foreign country. And we started with that. It was an attention-grabbing line. It was to show that this was a man who, though he grew up in the inner city, had traveled the world and had a range of experiences and a plethora of ideas and perspectives that he would bring to bear at law school. That's important. And that's what I'm going to help you do, craft something that's personal, special, and interesting. So let me just GPA, testing scores, recommendations, extracurricular, personal statement. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to help you craft things that are going to help you stand out. Some sort of addenda that's different. Every person should write a diversity addenda. Now, I know two of you on this call are listening and say, well, I'm not black. You don't have to be black. You're like, I'm a Caucasian, I'm white. No. Diversity isn't just about race. It could be where you're from. One of you I know is from the Midlands that's joining this call. All right, you're from Middle America. That is something I would speak to in a separate 2 to 3 paragraphs piece to just talk about how that makes you different. Remember, admissions committees want to bring together a group of people that are going to mesh with each other, and that's going to show the diversity of perspective in the classroom. You need to speak to that. For some of you, you've had these wonderful careers. That sets you apart. That's diversity. Diversity, again, is not just ethnicity. A lot of people make that mistake. I coach all of my clients. Every client I've worked with has a diversity statement. I don't care who you are, because whether it's gender, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's a different language you speak, whether it's geography, whether it's the length of your career, you have something about you that's slightly different. Now, of course, we're going to ping on that in the overall personal statement, but however, I think it is important that we speak to it also separately in that diversity piece. All right. Also, we're going to send something that's going to make you stand out. Remember that athlete that I told you, captain of his football team? He was applying to Cornell. By the way, he was accepted about 3 years ago. He just got his bar, graduated, license, passed the bar about earlier this year or last year. But anyway, this is what we did. I told him, look, put together a video montage, 4 minutes of your best football plays. We're going to send that in. He said, well, you think that's going to work? I said, it won't hurt. Let me tell you something. When I walked in day one at Harvard Law School, one of the admissions committee's members said, oh, I remember you. You're the one that wrote the book. Well, it wasn't just that they knew I wrote the book. I sent them the book with my application. How many people are going to do that? Even if the book is trash, it's different. You have something that makes you different. If you're, let's say, if you One of my classmates I know had climbed 10 of the top mountains around the world. That says something about you. It's endurance, it's persistence. Hey, if you have a little picture or something like that, send it. Now, you might be thinking about Legally Blonde, who sprays her, she has resume on pink paper and sprays it in cologne, and then she's in the pool doing the video, but it's something to it. Get people's attention. Now, we're going to do it tastefully and classfully, but we're going to do something that separates you from the thousands of others that's just going to send in those 5 points, personal statement, list of extracurriculars, recommendations, GPA and testing scores, something that's going to make you stick out. And that's what I'm going to help you with. Pulling out your personal brand, and how do we do that? All right. So now what I want to do is, and this part won't be recorded for privacy reasons. Now what I want to do is open it up for questions and comments, and I want you to share with each other where you are in your process. So when we pick up this call individually with each of you, I want you to have a sense of where other people are. We're going to be doing things individually, and then maybe I would say about 3 months from now, we'll come back together, because I want you to share brain trust again and to see the progress that you've made. Remember, find somebody who's going where you are, you'll get there twice as fast. You are not in competition with one another. In fact, pushing one another, iron sharpening iron, is going to help you all get to the place much quicker. Our goal is to get you to your target school. All right. So let's go ahead and open for feedback.